With Anjali Kamat, our guest for the rest of the hour, Arundhati Roy, the award-winning Indian writer, renowned global justice activist. Her latest book, Field Notes on Democracy, Listening to Grasshoppers. You recognize that music, Anjali?
Yes, Hum Dekhenge by Iqbal Bano. Arundhati Roy, your latest article in Outlook, Walking with the Comrades. You end the piece by talking about this song that so many people rose up in Pakistan listening to this song, and you place it in a completely different context. Start by talking about what's happening in the forests of India. What is this war that India is waging against some of the poorest people, people known as tribals, indigenous people, Adivasis? Who are the Maoists? What's happening there? And how did you get there?
Well, it's been going on for a while, but basically, there is a connection. If you look at Afghanistan, Waziristan, the northeast states of India, and this whole mineral belt that goes from West Bengal through Jharkhand, through Orissa to Chhattisgarh, what's called the Red Corridor in India. It's interesting that the entire thing is a tribal uprising. In Afghanistan, obviously, it's taken the form of radical Islamist uprising, and here it's a radical left uprising. But the attack is the same. It's a corporate attack, on these people. The resistance has taken different forms, but in India, this thing known as the Red Corridor. If you look at a map of India, the tribal people, the forests, the minerals, and the Maoists are all stacked on top of each other. So, and in the last 5 years, the governments of these various states have signed MOUs with mining corporations worth billions of dollars.
Memoranda of understanding.
Memorandums of understanding. So as we say, it's equally an MOUist corridor as it is a Maoist corridor, and it was interesting that a lot of these MOUs were signed in 2005, and at that time, it was just after this Congress government had come to power, and the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh announced that the Maoists are India's gravest internal security threat. And it was very odd that he should have said that then, because the Maoists had actually just been decimated in the state of Andhra Pradesh. I think they had killed something like 1,600 of them. But the minute he said this, the shares in the mining companies went up, because obviously it was a signal that the government was prepared to do something about this. And then started this assault on them, which ended up as Operation Green Hunt, which is where now tens of thousands of paramilitary troops are moving into these tribal areas. But before Operation Green Hunt, they tried another thing, which was that they armed a sort of tribal militia and backed by police in a state like Chhattisgarh, where I was traveling recently. They just went into the forest. This militia burned village after village after village, like something like 640 villages were more or less emptied. And it was the plan was what's known as strategic hamleting, which the Americans tried in Vietnam, which was first devised by the British in Malaya, where you try and force people to move into police wayside camps so that you can control them, and the villages are emptied so that the forests are open for the corporates to go. And what happened actually was that in this area in Chhattisgarh, out of, say, 350,000 people, about 50,000 people moved into the camps. Some were forced, some went voluntarily. And the rest just went off the government radar. Many of them went to other states to work as migrant labor, but many of them just continued to hide in the forests, unable to come back to their homes, but not wanting to leave. But the fact is that in this entire area, the Maoists have been there for 30 years, working with people and so on. So it's not a resistance that has risen up against mining. It preceded that a long time, by a long time. So it's very entrenched. And Operation Green Hunt has been announced because this militia called the Salva Jurum failed. So now they are upping the ante because these MOUs are waiting, and the mining corporations are not used to being made to wait. So there's a lot of money waiting. And I mean, what I want to say is that we are not using this word genocidal war lightly or rhetorically. But I travel in that area, and what you see is the poorest people of this country who have been outside the purview of the state. There's no hospital, there's no clinic, there's no education, there's nothing, and now there's a kind of siege where people can't go out of their villages to the market to buy anything because the markets are full of informers who are pointing out, this person is with the resistance and so on. There's no doctors, there's no medical help. People are suffering from extreme hunger, malnutrition. So it's not just killing. It's not just going out there and burning and killing, but it's also laying siege to a very vulnerable population, cutting them off from their resources, and putting them under grievous threat. And this is a democracy, so how do you clear the land for corporates in a democracy? You can't actually go and murder people, but you create a situation in which they either have to leave or they starve to death.
In your piece, you describe the people you traveled with, the armed guerrillas, as Gandhians with guns. Can you talk about what you mean by that, and what you think of the violence perpetrated by the Maoists?
Well, this is a very sharp debate in India about, even the sort of mainstream left and the liberal intellectuals are very, very suspicious of Maoists, and everybody should be suspicious of Maoists because, they have had a very difficult past, and there are a lot of things that their ideologues say which do put a chill down your spine. But when I went there, I have to say I was shocked at what I saw, because in the last 30 years, I think something has radically changed among them. And the one thing is that in India, people try and make this difference. They say there's the Maoists and then there's the tribals. Actually, the Maoists are tribals, and the tribals themselves have had a history of resistance and rebellion that predates Mao by centuries, And so I think it's just a name in a way. It's just a name. And yet, without that organization, the tribal people could not have put up this resistance. So it is complicated. But when I went in, I lived with them for, and I walked with them for a long time. And it's an army that is more Gandhian than any Gandhian, that leaves a lighter footprint than any climate change evangelist. And as I said, even their sabotage techniques are Gandhian. They waste nothing. They live on nothing. And to the outside world, first of all, the media has been lying about them for a long time. A lot of the incidents of violence did not happen, which I figured out. A lot of them did happen, and there was a reason for why they happened. And what I actually wanted to ask people was, when you talk about nonviolent resistance, I myself have spoken about that. I myself have said that women will be the victims of an armed struggle. And when I went in,